The pounding on her door shattered the Christmas silence like gunfire, which, Nneka would learn seconds later, it had been. She'd been wrapping the scarf she'd knitted for her roommate, humming along to a gospel playlist, when the desperate hammering began. Through the peephole, she saw him, a man in an expensive black coat, now shredded and blood-soaked, his face pale as the snow falling outside. "Please," he gasped in accented English when she cracked open the door. "Please save me." He collapsed against a doorframe, and Nneka saw it, the dark bloom spreading across his white shirt, the way his hands trembled as they pressed against his side. Behind him, Seoul's Christmas lights twinkled innocently, but somewhere in the darkness between buildings, she heard footsteps. Running. Searching. "There's a house across the street," he whispered, his dark eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her forget to breathe. "Men with guns. Please, call the police. Tell them shots fired. Make them go away." His knees buckled, and instinct took over. Nneka caught him, his weight nearly dragging them both down, and pulled him inside. As she kicked the door shut, she noticed the trail of crimson he'd left on her welcome mat, the one that read "Blessed Christmas," and wondered what kind of blessing had just stumbled into her life. Or curse. Through her window, she saw shadows moving near the house he'd indicated. Dark figures, efficient and cold, searching. Her hands shook as she dialed 112. "Please, I hear gunshots," she said in her careful Korean, praying her accent wouldn't slow them down. "Near the university housing. Many shots. I'm scared." The man had slumped against a wall, leaving a smear of red on the white paint. His breathing was shallow, labored. As she spoke to the dispatcher, his eyes never left her face, as if memorizing it, or perhaps saying goodbye to the last person he'd ever see. Sirens wailed in the distance. The shadows across the street scattered like roaches when lights flick on. Nneka ended the call and knelt beside him, her nursing student instincts warring with common sense that screamed to stay away from a man who brought gunfire to her door on Christmas Day. "Thank you," he breathed, and then his expression shifted, hardened. Despite his wounds, despite the blood pooling beneath him, authority crystallized in his features. "But your house is compromised now. We have to leave, or we're both dead. You need a hospital." "No hospital." His hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. "I have a safe house. But we leave now. Please. I won't let them kill you for saving me." In his eyes, she saw something that terrified her more than the blood or the bullets. Absolute certainty that death was coming for them both. And somehow, she believed him. Nneka's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she pressed a kitchen towel against the stranger's wound. 24 years of life in Lagos had taught her to assess danger quickly, and everything about this situation screamed run the other way. But he was bleeding out on her floor, and she'd spent 2 years in nursing school learning that life was sacred, even when it arrived on your doorstep wrapped in violence and expensive cologne. "Your name," she demanded, applying pressure that made him grunt. "If I'm going to die tonight, I should know who for." "Jean." His jaw clenched against the pain. Jean Woo Park. The name triggered something in her memory. She'd seen it in the Korean news apps she used to practice reading. Park Jin-woo, heir to Park Industries. Though the articles always had an edge to them, questions left carefully unasked. "The businessman," she said slowly. His laugh turned into a cough. "Among other things." Police sirens grew distant. Through her window, the Christmas lights on the building across the street suddenly went dark. Jin-woo saw it too, and his expression transformed from pain to predatory. "They're regrouping. 5 minutes, maybe less." He struggled to sit up. "Do you have a car?" "Yes, but..." "Get your keys. Nothing else. No phone, no wallet. Nothing they can trace." "I'm not leaving my phone. They'll track it." He was on his feet now, though swaying. Blood dripped from his fingers. I know how this works. I am how this works. Phone. Now. Something in his tone, the absolute authority of someone used to being obeyed, made her hand over her Samsung. He removed the battery with practiced efficiency, then did the same to his own iPhone. Where's your kitchen? She pointed, and he stumbled toward it, leaving crimson footprints on her cream carpet. She heard her trash disposal roar to life. When he returned, both phones were gone. Your car keys. And something dark to wear. I'm too visible like this. Nneka moved on autopilot, grabbing her keys and her ex-boyfriend's black hoodie from the closet. As Jin-woo pulled it over his ruined shirt, she finally found her voice. I don't understand what's happening. My uncle tried to kill me tonight. He zipped the hoodie, wincing. He'll succeed if we stay here. I have a place, completely off-grid. I'll explain everything there, I promise. But right now. He met her eyes, and she saw both apology and steel. Right now, you saved my life, which means you're part of this whether you want to be or not. I'm sorry. But please, trust me for the next hour. Just 1 hour. Snow was falling heavier now, blanketing Seoul in Christmas white. Somewhere in the building, someone was singing carols. It felt like a lifetime ago that her biggest concern had been finishing her biochemistry assignment before the holiday break. 1 hour, she agreed, though she had no idea why. Maybe it was the nursing student in her, unable to abandon a patient. Maybe it was the look in his eyes, desperate but honest. Or maybe it was because, despite everything, some instinct told her that Jin-woo Park, whoever he really was, meant what he said about protecting her. Her car was in the basement garage. They took the stairs, Jin-woo leaning heavily on the railing, leaving occasional drops of blood. Each one felt like a beacon, marking their path. We'll need to switch vehicles, he said as they reached her white Hyundai. Halfway point. I'll direct you. This is insane. Yes. He collapsed into the passenger seat. But you're alive. Keep it that way. Drive north. As Nneka pulled out of the garage, she saw them in her rearview mirror. 2 men in dark coats, emerging from the shadows near her building's entrance. One lifted a phone to his ear. Faster, Jin-woo said quietly. She pressed the accelerator, and her quiet Christmas Eve disappeared into the snowy Seoul night, taking her old life with it. The safe house was nothing like Nneka had imagined. They'd abandoned her car in an empty parking lot in Wajongbu, transferring to a nondescript sedan that Jin-woo had retrieved from a paid lot using a code rather than a key. He'd given her coordinates that led them north, away from Seoul's glittering sprawl, into mountains where snow fell thick and civilization thinned to scattered farms and dark stretches of forest. Here, he'd finally said, and she'd turned onto a road barely visible through the snow. The house appeared like a secret, modern, glass and steel, nestled into the mountainside as if it had grown there. Solar panels lined the roof. The windows were dark, but she could sense technology humming beneath its quiet exterior. How did you? She started. Bought it 2 years ago. Fake name, cash, through a contact in Dubai. Jin-woo's voice was weaker now, his earlier adrenaline fading. My uncle thinks I'm predictable. But my father taught me to always have an exit plan. Guess he knew his own brother better than I did. He fumbled with a panel near the door, pressing his thumb to a scanner. Lights flickered on, revealing a stunning interior. Minimalist furniture, a kitchen that belonged in a magazine, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the dark valley below. Medical supplies. Jin-woo gestured vaguely toward a hallway. 3rd door. Everything you need. I planned for this. You planned to get shot? I planned for betrayal. He sank onto the leather couch, and in the warm light, she saw how much blood he'd lost. His lips were pale, his breathing shallow. Didn't think it would be Christmas, though. Uncle always loved Christmas. Nneka found the room, less a bedroom than a fully stocked medical bay. Surgical tools still in sterile packaging, antibiotics, for fluids, even a portable ultrasound. Whoever Jin-Woo Park really was, he'd prepared for war. She gathered what she needed and returned to find him trying to peel off the blood-soaked hoodie. His hands were trembling. "Let me," she said, gentler now. Nursing school had taught her to separate person from crisis. Right now, he wasn't a criminal or a billionaire or whatever complicated truth lay between. He was a patient, and he was dying on this expensive couch if she didn't act fast. She cut away the fabric and assessed the damage. 2 entrance wounds, one in his left side, one in his shoulder. The side wound was worse, still bleeding steadily. "Both bullets are still in," she said. "I need to remove them." "I know." His eyes met hers. "Have you done this before?" "On training dummies." "Fantastic." But he smiled, just slightly. "Better than my medical degree, which is in business management." Nneka prepared the improvised operating area, her hands steady now that she had a job to do. She'd watched the surgeons during her hospital rotations, assisted in minor procedures. She could do this. She had to. "This is going to hurt," she warned, prepping the local anesthetic. "Not my first bullet." He said it casually, but she saw the fear beneath. "There's whiskey in the kitchen. Top shelf. Alcohol thins the blood." "It's not for my blood." She brought the bottle anyway. He took a long drink, then bit down on a leather belt she'd found in the closet. Nneka said a prayer, half in English, half in Igbo, and began. The next hour blurred into focus and blood and Jin-Woo's muffled groans. The shoulder bullet came out clean. The side wound was complicated, the bullet lodged near his ribs. Her hands, slick with his blood, trembled as she worked by feel as much as sight, remembering her anatomy lessons, praying she didn't nick anything vital. When the second bullet finally clinked into the metal tray, they both exhaled. "You did it," he breathed, the belt falling from his mouth. "Don't celebrate yet." She was already stitching, her sutures neat despite the circumstances. Infection is the real enemy now. By the time she'd finished bandaging him, dressed him in 4 antibiotics, and checked his vitals, dawn was breaking over the mountains. Through the windows, she watched the sun turn the snow pink and gold, Christmas morning arriving like a secret they alone shared. Jin-Woo had fallen asleep, his face peaceful despite everything. Nneka sat on the floor beside the couch, still wearing her blood-stained clothes, and finally let herself shake. She'd saved his life. She'd also just performed surgery without a license, fled from gunmen, and abandoned her entire life without telling anyone where she'd gone. Her roommate would wake up to find her gone. Her parents in Lagos would call later today for Christmas, and she wouldn't answer. And this man, this stranger whose blood was under her fingernails, had brought her into something she didn't understand. She should have been terrified. Instead, watching him sleep as Christmas light filled the safe house, she felt strangely calm. Like maybe, impossibly, she was exactly where she needed to be. Jin-Woo woke to fever and memories bleeding together. His father's study. He was 12, watching father count money with the precision of a surgeon. "Remember, Jin-Woo, power isn't taken, it's inherited. I built this empire so you wouldn't have to." But the empire had cracks. Even at 12 he'd seen them, the way his uncle Taeyong watched father with eyes full of hunger, how the family business operated in shadows that no legitimate company needed. Now, 17 years later, those shadows had birthed bullets. "You're burning up," a voice said, feminine, with an accent that turned Korean words into music. The Nigerian woman. He'd forgotten her name, or maybe she'd never told him. His mind was soup, thoughts sliding away before he could grasp them. Cool cloth on his forehead. Gentle hands checking his pulse. "Infection," he managed. "Fighting it." She tilted his head, urged him to drink something bitter. "You've been drifting in and out for 2 days. The fever broke once, but it's back." 2 days. Uncle Taeyong would think him dead by now, or close enough. Good. Let him think that while Jin-Woo gathered strength. "Your name," he mumbled. "Forgot." Nneka. Nneka Okafor. She wrung out the cloth in a basin. Through his fever haze, he noticed details. The way she'd tied her hair back with a strip of bandage, how she'd changed into clothes she must have found in the house's supply closet. She looked exhausted, beautiful, entirely out of place in his world of blood and betrayal. Why? The question came out broken. Why stay? Could have left. And go where? She adjusted his foredrip with practiced efficiency. Back to my apartment where men with guns know my address? Besides, her hand paused on his wrist, checking his pulse. I'm Nigerian. We finish what we start. Despite the fever, he smiled. Stubborn. Practical. But she smiled back, and it cut through his delirium like sunlight. Now sleep. You're not dying on my watch. Not after I pulled 2 bullets out of you. He wanted to argue, to explain about his uncle, about the Park family business that ran deeper than the shipping companies and real estate holdings everyone knew about. Wanted to warn her that saving him meant she'd stepped into a war that had been brewing since his father's death 3 years ago. Instead, he slept, and dreamed of his father's funeral. The cathedral in Gangnam, packed with mourners, some genuine, most political. Uncle Taeyong had stood beside him, hand on Jin Woo's shoulder, whispering, "He built all this for us. We're family. We protect each other." Lies, all lies. Uncle had been planning his coup even then, just waiting for Jin Woo to lower his guard. When Jin Woo woke again, afternoon light filled the windows. The fever had broken, really broken this time. His head was clear, though his body felt like it had been taken apart and reassembled wrong. Nneka was asleep in the armchair across from him, her head tilted at an angle that would give her a neck ache. She'd stayed. 3 days now, if his fevered calculations were right. 3 days of keeping him alive when abandoning him would have been easier and safer. He studied her face in the golden light, the strong line of her jaw, the exhaustion bruised beneath her eyes, the small scar above her left eyebrow. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she was resilient. She'd walked into chaos and met it with steady hands and stubborn care. His phone buzzed, the burner phone he kept in the safe house, known only to 3 trusted people. A text from Miho, his head of security. "Seoul thinks you're dead." Uncle held memorial. Very convincing tears. Jin Woo typed back. "Good. Keep it that way. I need time. Whatever you're planning, boss, be careful. He's moving fast. Taking over your accounts, your properties. Board meeting next week to make it official. Let him. The higher he climbs, the harder he'll fall." He set the phone down and found Nneka watching him, those dark eyes sharp despite her exhaustion. "You're alive," she said. "Thanks to you." He tried to sit up, managed halfway before pain stopped him. "How long?" 3 days. Christmas came and went. She stood, stretched, moved to check his bandages with that professional efficiency he was starting to recognize. "Your fever almost killed you twice. Whatever infection you had, the antibiotics barely touched it. You're lucky. Not luck. Skill." He caught her hand before she could pull away. "Thank you. For staying. For not leaving me to die like you had every right to." She pulled free, but gently. "I told you. Nigerians finish what we start." Then softer. "Besides, you said they'd kill me if I went back. Was that true?" "Yes. No point in lying now. My uncle doesn't leave loose ends. Anyone who helped me is a threat. Then I guess I'm staying until you deal with him." She moved to the kitchen, started pulling out food from the remarkably well-stocked refrigerator. "And you're going to tell me everything. The real story. Not the businessman heir act. The truth about why your uncle wants you dead." Jin Woo watched her work, this woman who'd stepped into his nightmare with nothing but courage and medical training, and realized something that terrified him more than his uncle's bullets. He was going to tell her everything. And somehow, impossibly, he was starting to trust her with more than just his wounds. The safe house had a rhythm now. Mornings, Nneka changed his bandages and checked for infection. Afternoons, Jin-woo moved a little more, testing his strength. Evenings, they ate together, simple meals from the stockpile, shared in the golden light of sunset over the mountains. Tonight was their 7th night. Jin-woo had finally graduated from the couch to the dining table. Outside, fresh snow was falling, adding to the drifts that isolated them from the world. "Tell me," Nneka said, setting down her chopsticks. She'd been patient, focusing on his recovery. But he could see the questions building behind her eyes. "Your uncle. Your father's business. What am I really part of?" Jin-woo had prepared for this conversation during his fever dreams, but now, facing her directness, the practiced words dissolved. She deserved truth, not tactics. "My father was a criminal," he said simply. "Started as an enforcer for the Sangyong-pa, twin dragons, when he was 19. By 30, he ran their operations in Seoul. By 40, he'd legitimized enough to start Park Industries, but he never left the life. Just made it more sophisticated." Nneka's face didn't change. "And you inherited all of it. Everything." He pushed food around his plate. "The shipping companies that move more than just cargo. The nightclubs that launder money. The real estate that provides safe houses for people who need to disappear. When father died 3 years ago, I became the head of an organization that operates in 14 countries and employs, officially and unofficially, over 5,000 people. You could have walked away. Could I?" He met her eyes. 5,000 people depend on this empire. Not all of them are criminals, Nneka. Most are just trying to survive in a system where legitimate work pays nothing. My father understood that. He took care of people. That's why they were loyal. And your uncle? Uncle Taeyong helped build it all. He was father's muscle, his enforcer. But father knew. Jin-woo's hand clenched around his water glass. He knew Taeyong was too violent, too ambitious. So father made me heir, despite tradition saying it should go to the eldest male. Uncle smiled and bowed and called me boss for 3 years. Then, on Christmas, he sent bullets instead of gifts. Nneka was quiet for a long moment. "You could tell the police." "The police?" Jin-woo laughed bitterly. "Half of them are on our payroll. The other half know better than to poke into Park family business. And even if I could, testimony against my uncle means exposing the whole operation. 5,000 people lose their income. Families go hungry. And uncle. He'd be dead before trial, because he's made too many enemies who'd kill him the moment he lost protection." "So you're planning something else?" It wasn't a question. Jin-woo studied her across the table. This nursing student who should be terrified, should be demanding he let her go, should be anything except calmly listening to him confess to running a criminal empire. "I'm taking it back," he said. "Uncle thinks I'm dead, which means he's careless right now. Celebrating. Consolidating power. I have people loyal to me. My father's people who remember what leadership with honor looks like. I'm going to contact them from here, one by one. Build a coalition. Then, when uncle thinks he's untouchable," Jin-woo's voice hardened, "I take him down. Not violently. Father hated unnecessary bloodshed. But permanently." "How?" "My uncle has done things, terrible things, that even our organization won't tolerate. Trafficking in things we have codes against. I just need proof, need to gather enough evidence to present to the council. They'll remove him themselves. Justice, family style." Nneka pushed her plate away. "And me? What happens to me when this is over?" The question hung between them like the snow falling outside. Jin-woo had been asking himself the same thing. The smart answer was to give her money, a new identity, send her far away where his world couldn't touch her. The safe answer. But when he looked at her, at the woman who'd saved his life, who'd stayed when she could have fled, who listened to his confessions without judgment, safe wasn't what he felt. "I don't know," he admitted. "But you won't be harmed. I promise you that. When this ends, you can go back to your life, your studies. I'll make sure you're protected, that my uncle's people never find you. What if I don't want to go back? The question stopped his heart. What? Nneka stood, moved to the window. The snow fell heavier now, blanketing the world in white silence. My life in Seoul. My apartment, my school friends, my careful plans for the future. It all feels like someone else's life now. Like I was sleepwalking until bullets woke me up. She turned to face him, and in her eyes he saw something fierce and unafraid. I'm not saying I want to join your organization or become a criminal. But maybe I'm tired of playing it safe. Maybe saving your life reminded me that I'm capable of more than just studying and planning and being responsible Nneka who makes her parents proud. Jinwoo rose carefully, his wounds still tender. This isn't a game. If you stay. I know. She closed the distance between them. Your uncle will try to kill me. Your enemies might use me against you. I'll be part of something dangerous and complicated and probably illegal. She smiled then, small and brave. But I'll also be alive. Really alive. Not just existing. He should have argued. Should have told her to run as far and fast as she could. Should have protected her from himself. Instead, he said, "Help me take down my uncle." Yes. It won't be easy. We'll be stuck here for weeks, maybe months. Working. Planning. You'll see sides of me that aren't pretty. I've already seen you bleeding on my floor. How much worse can it get? Despite everything, he laughed. Then, more seriously, if you do this, if you help me, there's no going back to your old life. Not completely. You'll be part of this world. Maybe, Nneka said, that's exactly what I need. Outside, the snow fell and fell, burying the old world under new white. Inside the safe house, between a man who'd inherited darkness and a woman who'd chosen courage, something shifted. An alliance, yes. But also, though neither would admit it yet, the beginning of something neither had planned for. Something that felt dangerously like fate. The safe house transformed. What had been a refuge became a war room. Jinwoo's recovery accelerated once he had purpose. 2 weeks after Christmas, he was walking without wincing, his shoulder almost fully mobile. The surgical scar on his side remained tender, but Nneka's stitches held perfectly, a fact he mentioned every time she changed his bandages, just to see her try not to smile. She was smiling less lately, focused as she was on their mission. This one, Nneka said, tapping the tablet where Jinwoo had assembled profiles of his father's loyalists. Choi Min-jun. Your head of security. You said he was at your father's deathbed. Father's last words were to him. Protect my son. Jinwoo studied Choi's profile. 15 years of service, decorated Marine, 3 daughters in university. Miho is solid. But my uncle has been working on him, probably offering money, promotions. So we offer something better. Nneka was learning the language of power quickly, almost too quickly. It unnerved Jinwoo how naturally she'd adapted to strategic thinking. What does Choi Min-jun value more than money? Honor. Family. Jinwoo set down the tablet. Miho came from nothing. My father paid for his daughter's education. If Uncle Taeyong hurts them to ensure Miho's loyalty, then we protect them first. Nneka was already making notes. Can you get them somewhere safe before we make contact? I have people. 3 phone calls, they'll be in Japan, new identities, full security. He watched her work, this woman who'd been a nursing student 3 weeks ago, now planning like a general. You're good at this. At what? Strategy. Thinking 3 moves ahead. He caught her hand. It worries me how good you are. She looked up, and he saw the complexity in her eyes, excitement and fear mixed together. Should I apologize for being useful? No. But, he struggled for words. This world changes people, Nneka. I don't want it to change you. Maybe, she said softly, I'm changing myself. They worked through the night, contacting loyalists one by one through secure channels. Each conversation was careful, coded. Jin-woo couldn't risk exposing himself until he had enough support to move openly. The responses came slowly. Choi Min-jun, once his daughters were secured. Lee Sang-mi, who ran their Busan operations. Park Ji-ho, his father's oldest friend, who'd been frozen out by Uncle Taeyong. One by one, the pieces fell into place. Your uncle's making mistakes, Nneka observed 3 weeks in, scrolling through intercepted communications. Jin-woo had taught her how to access their encrypted networks, and she'd proven unervingly quick at deciphering coded messages. He's expanded into human trafficking. Not just moving people for work. Actual slavery. Your people hate it. Father forbade it. Said some lines couldn't be crossed. Jin-woo felt rage building, hot and focused. If I can prove Uncle's involvement, the council will turn on him themselves. So we get proof. Easier said than done. Uncle's careful. But his son isn't. Nneka pulled up another file. Park Dae-young. Your cousin. Spoiled, arrogant. Thinks he's untouchable now that his father's in charge. He's been bragging at clubs, showing off. What if we use that? Jin-woo leaned in, reading the surveillance reports his people had compiled. Dae-young at Gangnam clubs, drunk and loud, boasting about the new revenue streams his father had opened. He has his father's ambition without his father's caution, Jin-woo mused. If we could get him talking, recorded. We need someone he'd trust. Someone unexpected. Their eyes met, and Jin-woo saw her idea before she spoke it. No, he said immediately. Absolutely not. Why not? I'm the perfect person. Unknown, unconnected to your world. That's exactly why not. Dae-young is dangerous. Nneka. He's hurt people for fun. And I'm a nobody. A foreign student. Harmless. She stood, paced the room. Think about it. I accidentally meet him at a club. Flirt a little. Get him talking. He'd never suspect. No. Jin-woo. No. He stood too, wincing as his wound pulled. I won't risk you like that. Find another way. There is no other way. Her voice rose. We've been at this for weeks. Your uncle's consolidating power. Every day you wait, he gets stronger. You said yourself we need proof before the next council meeting. That's in 3 weeks. 3 weeks to gather evidence that your uncle's careful enough to hide. Unless someone gets close to his idiot son. Someone. Not you. Who else? Every woman in your organization knows Dae-young or knows of him. I'm the only one who can approach him fresh. The only one he'd brag to because he'd want to impress me. Jin-woo wanted to argue, but the strategy was sound. Dae-young had always been a liability. Father had said so many times. Pride was his weakness, and an attractive woman showing interest would loosen his tongue faster than any amount of interrogation. But the thought of Nneka anywhere near his cousin made something primal rise in Jin-woo's chest. If he hurts you. He won't. I'll be wired. Your security will be nearby. First sign of danger, they pull me out. She stepped closer, her hand finding his. You trusted me with your life, Jin-woo. Trust me with this. Outside, February snow was falling. They'd been in the safe house for 6 weeks now, isolated from the world, living in their own strange bubble. 6 weeks of working together, eating together, existing in the intimate space of shared purpose. 6 weeks of Jin-woo falling in love, though he hadn't admitted it yet, not even to himself. 1 hour, he finally said. You approach him at Club Octagon this Friday. Miho and 4 guards will be positioned throughout the club. First sign of trouble, you signal and they extract you immediately. Deal. And Nneka. He caught her chin, made her look at him. If anything happens to you, I will burn down everything my father built to avenge you. Understand? She should have been scared. Instead, she smiled. Promise. It was the smile that undid him, brave and reckless and beautiful. Without thinking, he closed the distance between them and kissed her. She froze for half a heartbeat, then melted into him, her hands finding his face, his hair. The kiss deepened, weeks of tension and danger and proximity finally finding expression. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jin-woo rested his forehead against hers. "That was," she started. "A mistake," he finished, though every part of him screamed the opposite. "I'm sorry. You work for me now. That was inappropriate." "I don't work for you." Her eyes flashed. "I'm your partner." "And that," she kissed him again, briefer but no less intense. "That wasn't a mistake. It was inevitable." "Nneka. We'll figure out what this means later," she said firmly. "After we take down your uncle. After you reclaim your empire. But don't," her voice softened. "Don't pretend you don't feel it too." He couldn't. Wouldn't. So instead he kissed her again, and let tomorrow worry about itself. Club Octagon pulsed with light and sound. From the VIP section, Nneka watched the crowd below, thousands of bodies moving to music that vibrated through her ribs. She'd never felt less like herself. The dress Jin-woo's stylist had provided was crimson silk, designer, cut to reveal and conceal in calculated measures. Her hair, usually practical, had been transformed into soft waves. The makeup made her eyes look huge, dangerous. "You look like you belong here," Jin-woo had said before she left the safe house. But his eyes said something else. "You look like everything I'm afraid to lose." Now, scanning the club, she spotted her target. Park Dae-young holding court at the center table, surrounded by women and sycophants. Even from a distance, she could read his arrogance. The way he lounged like a king, the casual cruelty in how he dismissed people with a gesture. "Visual confirmed," Miho's voice crackled through her nearly invisible earpiece. "We have you covered. North exit, south exit, and 4 guards in the crowd. Say the word, we extract." Nneka took a breath. Months ago, she'd been studying for exams, worried about grades and rent. Now she was about to seduce a mobster's son in a plot straight out of a crime thriller. "Nigerians finish what we start," she reminded herself, borrowing the courage she'd claimed to Jin-woo. She descended from VIP, timing her path to intersect Dae-young's sightline. The trick wasn't to approach him, it was to make him approach her. She ordered a drink at the bar nearest his table. Waited. Let him notice. It took 3 minutes. "I haven't seen you here before," a voice said in Korean, smooth and practiced. Dae-young had materialized beside her, close enough that she could smell expensive cologne and entitled confidence. Nneka turned. "Let surprise register." "Is that a line?" "Because I've heard better." "Honesty, then." His smile was sharp. "You're beautiful. Foreign, and alone. I'm interested in all 3. And modest too, I see." But she smiled back, playing the game. "Nneka." Dae-young. He signaled the bartender. "Her drinks are on my tab. Top shelf only, she deserves the best." Too easy, Nneka thought. But she let him guide her back to his VIP table, let him dismiss the other women with a careless wave, let him think he was the hunter. An hour passed in choreographed flirtation. Dae-young drank heavily, talked constantly, and confirmed everything Jin-woo had said. He was his father's ambition without the intelligence. "My father's finally running things properly," Dae-young boasted, his hand creeping toward Nneka's thigh. She let it, fighting revulsion. "All these years, my cousin played it safe. But real power, real money, it comes from taking risks." "What kind of risks?" Nneka leaned in, fascinated. "The kind that pay millions." He was drunk now, loose-tongued. "Shipping routes everyone ignores. Cargo that desperate people pay fortunes to transport. My father saw the opportunity, and..." His phone buzzed. Dae-young glanced at it, and his expression shifted, sobered instantly despite the alcohol. "I need to take this." He stood abruptly. "Don't move." I'll be back. He walked toward the restrooms, phone pressed to his ear. Nneka caught Miho's voice in her earpiece. Stay alert. That call spooked him. She watched Dae-young's body language change as he talked, aggressive gestures, angry. When he returned, the drunk playboy was gone, replaced by something colder. Let's go somewhere private, he said. It wasn't a suggestion. The club is fun. I said private. His hand clamped on her wrist, tight enough to hurt. My car. Now. Alarm bells screamed. Extract, Nneka said quietly, the code word. But Dae-young was already pulling her toward the exit, moving fast, and suddenly 3 men in suits materialized around them, his security, forming a wall that blocked Miho's guards. Move, Dae-young snarled at his men, and they did, surrounding Nneka, hustling her toward the club's back exit. She tried to pull free. Dae-young's grip tightened, bruising. Did you think I was stupid? His breath was hot against her ear. A beautiful woman, alone, asking questions? I know what you are. The question is who sent you. They burst into the alley. A black Mercedes waited, engine running. Dae-young's security shoved her toward it. Then chaos. Miho appeared from nowhere, 3 guards with him. Let her go. Dae-young's men drew guns. So did Miho's. For one terrible moment, Nneka was caught in the center of a standoff in a Seoul alley, about to die because she'd overplayed her hand. Nneka down. Miho shouted. She dropped, and the world exploded into motion. Miho's men moved like a military unit, disarming, disabling. Dae-young tried to run. Miho caught him by the collar, slammed him against the Mercedes. Tell your father, Miho said quietly, that Jin-woo Park sends his regards. Tell him the dead don't stay buried. Dae-young's face went white. Jin-woo's dead. Does he look dead? Miho gestured, and the guards parted. Jin-woo stepped out of a second vehicle, very much alive, fury etched in every line of his face. Hello, cousin, Jin-woo said. We need to talk. They took Dae-young to a warehouse in Incheon, neutral territory, away from Seoul's prying eyes. Jin-woo's men secured the perimeter while Miho's team swept for bugs and cameras. Inside, under flickering fluorescent lights, Jin-woo faced his cousin for the first time since Christmas. Dae-young was tied to a chair, no longer the arrogant prince from the club. Fear had stripped away his bravado, leaving something smaller, meaner. You're dead, Dae-young said, but it came out uncertain. Father said. Your father shot me. Jin-woo kept his voice level, though rage simmered beneath. On Christmas. Sent 4 men to murder me and failed. How does that reflect on the Park family leadership? You don't understand. Uncle had to. It was business. Business. Jin-woo laughed without humor. Is human trafficking business now? Enslaving people. That's what father built this empire to prevent, what he died protecting people from. That was father's weakness. Dae-young's courage returned in a rush of desperation. Being soft. Playing by rules when everyone else plays dirty. My father's just being smart. Jin-woo hit him. Once, precise, breaking Dae-young's nose. Jin-woo. Nneka's voice, quiet but firm. She'd been standing by the door, recovering from the club incident. Now she stepped forward, and Jin-woo saw something in her eyes that pulled him back from the edge. He's not worth it, she said softly. We need him talking, not bleeding. Jin-woo stepped back, breathing hard. She was right. Violence was his uncle's way, not his. Record everything, he told Miho, who had a camera set up. Dae-young, you're going to tell us about your father's operations. The trafficking routes, the cargo, the clients. Everything. I won't. You will. Because the alternative is I let this recording reach the council without your testimony. Let them think you masterminded it all, that your father was innocent. How long do you think you'd survive? The color drained from Dae-young's face. You wouldn't. Try me. What followed was 3 hours of confession. Dae-young talked about the shipping routes his father had opened through Southeast Asia, the bribes paid to immigration officials, the warehouses where people waited to be sold. He talked about everything, desperate to shift blame to his father, to save himself. Jin-woo recorded it all, his face carved from stone. When it was over, Miho's men took Dae-young to a secure location, not killed, but imprisoned until Jin-woo decided his fate. Jin-woo stood in the empty warehouse, the weight of what came next settling on his shoulders. "You have enough," Nneka said. She'd stayed throughout, witnessing everything without flinching. Evidence, testimony, witnesses. The council will turn on your uncle. They'll kill him. Jin-woo met her eyes. Not officially. But someone will. That's how this works. And that bothers you. After what he did. He's still family. My father's brother. Jin-woo's voice cracked. Father always said family was everything. Even when they betray you, even when they try to kill you, they're still family. Nneka crossed to him, took his hands. Your father also said some lines can't be crossed. Your uncle crossed them. This isn't about revenge, Jin-woo. It's about justice. About protecting the people your father protected, the ones your uncle's hurting now. I know. But knowing and feeling are different things. Then feel it. She pulled him close, let him rest his head on her shoulder. Feel all of it, the anger, the grief, the betrayal. Then do what needs to be done anyway. They stood like that, holding each other in an empty warehouse as dawn approached. Two people from different worlds, bound together by bullets and choices and something neither had quite named yet. When this is over, Jin-woo said into her hair, what happens to us? What do you want to happen? He pulled back to look at her. I want you to stay. Not as a partner in crime or a co-conspirator. Just stay. With me. Build something better than what my father left. Better how? The legitimate businesses can stay legitimate. The empire can transition. Slow, careful, but real. No more human trafficking, no more drugs, none of the worst parts. Just protection, just helping people who need it. It'll take years, maybe decades. But with you, he cupped her face. With you I think I could do it. Could be better than what I inherited. Nneka kissed him then, soft and sure. Then let's finish this. Take down your uncle, claim your inheritance, and build something worth believing in. Together. Together. Outside, Seoul was waking up. The city lights faded as sunrise painted the sky pink and gold. Somewhere in that sprawling metropolis, Uncle Taeyong was about to learn that the nephew he'd tried to kill was very much alive. And coming for everything he'd stolen. The Park Family Council met in a traditional hanok in Bukshan, hidden among tourist sites and historical markers. 18 members, the heads of every major operation, the enforcers and accountants and strategists who really ran the empire. Uncle Taeyong sat at the head of the table, comfortable in power. He'd done this for 2 months now, ever since Jin-woo's death. The other council members deferred to him, accepted his leadership. Today that would change. First order of business, Taeyong began, the Busan expansion. The doors opened. Jin-woo walked in, Miho at his side, for guards behind them. The room erupted. Council members shot to their feet, shock and confusion warring on their faces. Taeyong went absolutely white, then red with rage. Impossible, he breathed. You're dead. Disappointed, uncle? Jin-woo took his seat at the table, his father's seat, the one Taeyong had claimed. You'll have to try harder next time. Though I'd prefer there not be a next time. You can't just. Taeyong looked around wildly, seeking support. Found only shock. I'm the head of this council now. You were declared dead. Declared by whom? You. Jin-woo's voice was ice. I'm still breathing, uncle. Still the legitimate heir to Park Holdings and everything attached to it. Or do you want to argue my claim in front of everyone here, Silence. The council members were calculating, reading the room. Jinwoo could see it happening. Loyalties shifting, power recalibrating. You can't prove anything, Taeyong said, but his voice wavered. You've been gone 2 months. For all we know, you abandoned your responsibilities. Responsibilities you tried to murder me out of. Jinwoo nodded to Miho, who set up a laptop and projector. Christmas Day. 4 gunmen at my apartment. You remember, Uncle? You organized it. Lies. Video evidence from 3 angles. Audio recordings of your men coordinating. And testimony from someone who knows all about your new ventures. Jinwoo played the first clip. Dae-young confessing everything, naming his father as the architect of the trafficking operation. The council members' expressions hardened as they watched. Human trafficking was the one line father had drawn absolutely. The one rule that was sacred. Human lives aren't cargo, Lee Sang-mi said quietly. She ran Busan operations, had been one of father's first recruits. Your brother built this organization on protection, not exploitation. Jinwoo is lying. Taeyong was standing now, desperate. He faked this, paid my son to say these things. We have the routes. Miho distributed folders to each council member. Financial records showing payments to traffickers. Shipping manifests. Client lists. All traced back to accounts your brother controls. The room was turning. Jinwoo could feel it, the way power shifted like wind changing direction. You betrayed everything father built, Jinwoo said quietly. You tried to kill me because you knew I'd never allow this. And you're right, I won't. Father's empire dies here, today. What comes next is something better. You're weak, Taeyong spat. Just like your father. Too soft to do what's necessary. Necessary. Park Ji-ho stood, father's oldest friend, a man in his 70s who'd known the Park family for 40 years. Enslaving people is necessary? Trafficking children is necessary? Is that what we've become? I'm trying to grow this organization. To make it stronger. By destroying what it stands for? Lee Sang-mi stood too. I joined because your brother promised protection, not exploitation. If this is our future, I want no part of it. One by one, the council members stood, declaring their allegiance not to Taeyong, but to the principles father had established. To Jinwoo's vision of transition, of legitimacy. Taeyong watched his support crumble, watched everything he'd built in 2 months collapse in minutes. You'll regret this, he said to Jinwoo, venom in every word. All of you. He'll run this empire into the ground with his idealism. I'm shutting it down, Jinwoo said simply. The trafficking stops today. The routes close, the contracts void. Anyone who wants to continue that work is out. Anyone who stays commits to transition, 5 years to move all operations legitimate, or you leave with severance. 5 years. Taeyong laughed wildly. Impossible. You can't just. I can. I will. Jinwoo stood, faced his uncle across the table. You have a choice, uncle. Resign quietly, take your severance, and disappear. Or I take this evidence to the authorities, and you spend the rest of your life in prison. Your choice. Taeyong's hand moved toward his jacket, toward the gun Jinwoo knew he carried. Miho's weapon was out faster, aimed and steady. Don't. For a long moment, everything balanced on a knife's edge. Then Taeyong's hand fell away, empty. You're making a mistake, he said. You'll fail. And when you do, don't come begging for help. I won't need to. Jinwoo nodded to the guards. Escort my uncle out. He has 24 hours to leave Korea. If he's still here tomorrow, he faces charges. They took Taeyong away, still muttering threats and curses. The council room emptied slowly, members approaching Jinwoo one by one to pledge loyalty, to promise cooperation. When only Miho remained, Jinwoo finally let himself breathe. You did it, Miho said. Clean, no violence, no war. Your father would be proud. Would he? Jin-woo stared at the empty chair his uncle had occupied. Or would he say family comes first, even when they betray you? He'd say you chose the harder path. The right one. Miho clasped his shoulder. What now? Now. Jin-woo thought of Nneka, waiting at the safe house for news. Now I start keeping promises. 6 months later, Seoul bloomed with spring. The Park Industries building stood in Gangnam, gleaming glass and steel, its lobby filled with employees arriving for legitimate work. The shipping company still operated, but now it moved only legal cargo. The nightclubs stayed open, but the backrooms had closed forever. The real estate holdings remained, transformed into affordable housing. Jin-woo stood in his new office, father's old office, redecorated, and watched the city wake up. Coffee. Nneka entered without knocking, carrying 2 cups. She'd given up trying to be formal about 6 weeks ago. And the quarterly reports you wanted. She'd changed too. The nursing student had become a businesswoman, her insights invaluable as Jin-woo navigated the empire's transformation. She'd enrolled in business courses, learned the operations, made herself essential. She'd also moved into his apartment. That had happened gradually, naturally, until one day he'd realized her clothes filled his closet and her toothbrush lived permanently by his sink. The transition's ahead of schedule, she said, reviewing the reports. 3 divisions already operating entirely legally. 2 more by year-end. Not fast enough. Jin-woo sipped his coffee. Every day we delay is a day people suffer in the operations we haven't closed yet. You can't save everyone immediately. You're doing it right. Careful, sustainable. Your father built this empire over decades. You can't dismantle it overnight without destroying thousands of legitimate jobs. I know. Doesn't make it easier. She came to stand beside him at the window, her hand finding his. Your uncle resurfaced. Where? Manila. Miho's sources say he's trying to rebuild, recruit old allies. But no one's biting. Word got out about the trafficking. He's toxic now. Jin-woo felt no satisfaction. Taeyong was family, despite everything. He'll die there. Either from rivals or his own ambition. Does that bother you? Yes. But I can live with it. He turned to face her. I can live with a lot of things, as long as you're here. Smooth. But she smiled. Is this your way of avoiding discussion about the wedding plans? God, no. Your mother terrifies me more than my uncle ever did. Nneka laughed. They were getting married in Seoul in 3 months, a massive production that had somehow grown from small and intimate to 500 guests and international coverage. Her parents were flying in from Lagos next month to finalize arrangements. She's excited, Nneka said. Her daughter marrying a billionaire businessman? She's been bragging to everyone in church. Does she know the businessman used to run a crime empire? I told her you inherited a complicated business and are transitioning to full legitimacy. Which is true. She poked his chest. Don't sell yourself short. You've done something remarkable, taken an empire built on violence and are transforming it into something good. We're doing it. I couldn't without you. True. She kissed him quickly. But I'm also marrying you for your money, so don't get too sentimental. He laughed, pulled her closer. Through the window, Seoul sprawled below them, a city that had witnessed their Christmas nightmare and now would host their wedding. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Opening your door that night? You could have ignored the knocking, could have stayed safe. And missed all this? She gestured at the office, the city, at him. Never. That night, when you were bleeding on my floor, you said you wouldn't let them kill me for saving you. You kept that promise. But more than that, you gave me a life I didn't know I could have. Purpose, adventure, a chance to be part of something bigger than myself. I gave you danger and chaos. You gave me everything. She said it simply, certainly. And in return, I'm going to help you build something your father would be proud of. Something we can be proud of. Deal. Deal. Her phone buzzed. Your mother's calling. Probably about the seating chart again. She and my mother are in warfare over who sits where. Let them fight it out. We'll just show up and say, I do. That's not how Korean weddings work, and you know it. Fine. But I'm not wearing the traditional costume for more than an hour. That hat is ridiculous. You'll wear it and look handsome. She answered the phone, switching to rapid Korean that still impressed him. While she argued about flowers and reception music, Jin-woo returned to the window. Somewhere in this city was the apartment where Nneka had saved his life. The warehouse where he'd confronted Dae-young. The hanok where he'd reclaimed his inheritance. And somewhere in the future they were building together was the life his father had wanted for him. Legitimate, purposeful, good. Christmas had brought bullets and blood. Spring brought new beginnings. And in 3 months, it would bring a wedding that married not just two people but two worlds, Nigerian and Korean, legitimate and reformed, darkness transformed into light. Jin-woo's phone rang. Miho, with news about another operation transitioning successfully, another piece of the old empire becoming something better. The work continued. It would for years yet. But standing in his father's office, watching Nneka argue about wedding decorations while simultaneously reviewing business reports, Jin-woo felt something he hadn't experienced since his father died. Hope. Not just for the empire's future, but for his own. For the family he and Nneka would build. For the legacy they'd create together. His father had built an empire on protection. Jin-woo would transform it into something more. A foundation. Legitimate businesses that employed thousands. Housing programs that helped the vulnerable. Opportunities for people who needed second chances. And at the center of it all, the woman who'd opened her door on Christmas Day and saved not just his life, but his soul. Jin-woo, Nneka said, covering her phone. Your mother wants to know if we're doing the traditional 12-course banquet or the Western-style plated dinner. Tell her we'll do both. Make everyone happy. That's going to cost a fortune. He smiled. Good thing I'm a billionaire businessman. She rolled her eyes but relayed the message. Outside, Seoul thrived. Messy, beautiful, full of millions of people trying to survive and thrive and find their own piece of happiness. Once, Jin-woo had inherited an empire built in shadows. Now, with Nneka beside him, he was building something that could stand in the light. And on their wedding day, with 500 witnesses and 2 families joined across continents, he would promise her not just his love but his partnership in creating the future they both believed in. A future where Christmas meant celebration, not bullets. Where opening doors led to love, not violence. Where 2 people from impossible circumstances could find each other, save each other, and build something neither had imagined possible. The phone calls continued. Wedding plans and business decisions, family drama and empire transformation, all flowing together into the complicated, beautiful chaos of their new life. Jin-woo reached for Nneka's hand, and she took it without interrupting her conversation, her fingers interlacing with his as naturally as breathing. This was their foundation. This was their future. And it began, as all great loves do, with a choice. To open the door when someone knocked, to save a life when it would have been safer to turn away. Epilogue. Crimson to white. 1 year later. The Park family estate in Pyeongchang was transformed for Christmas. Not the violent Christmas of 2 years ago, but the kind Jin-woo's father had always dreamed of. The house filled with family, laughter echoing through halls that had known too much silence, too much plotting. Nneka stood in the kitchen, directing caterers in a mixture of Korean, English, and emphatic hand gestures. She wore a loose traditional hanbok in deep blue, modified to accommodate the slight swell of her belly. 5 months pregnant, a fact that had sent both their mothers into competitive ecstasy over grandchild preparations. Your mother just rearranged the entire dining room, Jin-woo said, appearing behind her to wrap his arms carefully around her waist, his hands settling protectively over their unborn child. Again. Let her. She's happy. When was the last time you saw her happy? He thought about it. father's funeral. She was relieved he'd finally found peace. Dark, but accurate. Nneka leaned back into him. How's the Lagos contingent? Your father is teaching mine how to play drafts. Your mother is horrifying mine with stories about your childhood rebellions. Your brothers are drinking miho under the table, which I didn't think was possible. Okafor men have strong constitutions. She turned in his arms. Are you happy? Deliriously. He kissed her forehead. Terrifyingly. Is it supposed to feel this fragile? Like any moment it could shatter. That's called having something worth losing. Her hand covered his. But we won't lose this. Not this time. We fought too hard for it. Through the window, snow was falling, the good kind now, Christmas snow that meant celebration, not bloodshed. The estate grounds were lit with thousands of lights, traditional and modern mixed together, like their life. The transition was almost complete. 18 months into Jinwoo's 5-year plan, and Park Industries was nearly unrecognizable. The last of the illicit operations had closed 6 months ago. The employees had been offered retraining, legitimate positions, or generous severance. Most had stayed, grateful for the chance at legal work that paid well. The trafficking routes were shut down, the victims compensated and helped. Jinwoo had set up a foundation, the Park Min-soo Foundation, named for his father, dedicated to fighting human trafficking throughout Asia. Nneka ran it, her nursing background and fierce compassion making her perfect for the role. Guest incoming, Jinwoo murmured. Choi Min-joon appeared, dressed casually for once, his daughters trailing behind him with Nneka's nephews. Boss, sorry Jinwoo, we have a situation. Jinwoo tensed. Old instincts died hard. What kind? Your uncle. The room temperature seemed to drop. Nneka's hand tightened on Jinwoo's. He's here. Jinwoo's voice went flat. In Korea. No. He's dead. Miho's face was carefully neutral. Manila police found him 3 days ago. Heart attack, they say. But given his enemies, they killed him. Probably. There'll be an investigation, but... Miho shrugged. He made too many enemies. Someone decided to collect old debts. Jinwoo should have felt something. Grief, vindication, relief. Instead, there was just emptiness where his uncle used to be. Taeyong Park, who'd helped build an empire and tried to corrupt it. Who'd taught Jinwoo chess and then tried to murder him. Family, complicated and broken. Do we need to do anything? Nneka asked quietly. The body. Jinwoo looked at Miho. Being cremated in Manila. He left instructions. No funeral, no ceremony. One last middle finger to the family. Then we honor that. Jinwoo took a breath. He made his choices. We made ours. Let him rest. Miho nodded and left. Nneka pulled Jinwoo closer. You okay? I don't know. He was my uncle. I grew up calling him, learning from him. Then he tried to kill me, and I destroyed his life. And now he's dead, and I feel nothing. Is that wrong? It's human. She kissed his jaw. You grieved him already, when he betrayed you. This is just the epilogue. Dark, but accurate. He echoed her earlier words, and she smiled. I learned from the best. The kitchen timer went off. Dinner preparations continued around them, life flowing forward because it had to, because that's what the living did. Later that evening, the dining room was chaos in the best way. 23 people crammed around a table meant for 16, plates passing in multiple languages. Jinwoo's mother trying to serve everyone while Nneka's mother insisted on helping, the two women having formed an unlikely alliance built on shared grandchild obsession. Jinwoo's cousin from his mother's side, the good cousin as Nneka called her, was teaching Nneka's younger brother Korean drinking games. Miho was showing Jinwoo's mother-in-law how to properly pour soju. Someone had started singing, off-key but enthusiastic. This was family now. Not the one Jinwoo had inherited, broken and bloody, but the one he and Nneka had built. Mixed, loud, imperfect, real. Speech, someone called out. Others picked up the chant. Jin-woo stood reluctantly. Public speaking he could do for business, but this mattered more and terrified him accordingly. 2 years ago, he began, and the room quieted. On Christmas Day, I knocked on a stranger's door. I was bleeding, desperate, sure I was dying. And that stranger, he found Nneka's eyes. That stranger saved my life. Romantic, Nneka's brother called out. Tell us the part about the bullets. Laughter rippled through the room. Even Jin-woo smiled. I thought that was the end of the story. She saved me, I recovered, we went our separate ways. But Nneka Okafor doesn't do anything by halves. She didn't just save my life. She stayed. She helped me take back what was stolen. She helped me transform an empire built on darkness into something we can both be proud of. He's going to cry, Miho stage whispered. I've never seen the boss cry. I'm not crying, Jin-woo said, though his voice was rough. I'm grateful. For that Christmas, as terrible as it was, because it brought me here. To this family, this life, this woman who opened her door when anyone sensible would have kept it locked. Nigerians finish what we start, Nneka said, raising her glass of juice. No alcohol for her these days. You knocked on my door half dead. I wasn't about to let you die before I got the full story. And now you're stuck with me. And now I'm stuck with you, she agreed. And your complicated family, and your reformed empire, and this baby who's going to be so confused about their heritage. Best kind of confused, her father interjected. Korean and Nigerian? That child will rule the world. Or at least have excellent food, someone else added. The toasts continued, in Korean and English and Igbo, languages mixing like the families, the cultures, everything blending into something new and beautiful and theirs. Later, much later, after guests had drifted to bedrooms and guest houses, after the caterers had cleaned and left, Jin-woo and Nneka stood in the snow outside the estate. The same snow that had fallen that Christmas 2 years ago. But now it felt different. Peaceful instead of ominous, beautiful instead of threatening. Your uncle, Nneka said quietly. Are you really okay? I don't know. Maybe I will be, eventually. Maybe grief is just something you carry. He pulled her closer, protective against the cold. But I have this. You, the baby, the family we're building. That's enough. More than enough. They stood in the falling snow, watching Christmas lights reflect off white drifts, and Jin-woo thought about his father, Min-soo Park, who'd built an empire to protect people and lost his way, who'd loved his son enough to give him an exit strategy, even from beyond the grave. I'm doing it, father, Jin-woo thought. Building something better. It would have been easier with you here, but maybe you knew I needed to do this myself. To choose this path, not inherit it. What are you thinking? Nneka asked. That my father would have loved you. Would have approved of all this. The transition, the foundation, the baby. Everything. You think. I know. He always said the empire was about protection. We're just doing it better. Protecting people from the empire itself, from what it used to be. Poetic. She shivered. Also, I'm freezing. Pregnant women get cold faster. That's not medically. Don't argue with a pregnant woman. I have scientific studies. You have hormones and stubbornness. Same thing. But she was smiling as they headed back inside, back to warmth and family and the life they'd fought for. 3 months later, the Park Foundation Gala. The ballroom glittered with Seoul's elite, businesspeople, politicians, celebrities, all gathered for the Park Foundation's annual fundraiser. This year's focus, supporting survivors of human trafficking. Jin-woo worked the room with practiced ease, no longer the underground boss but the legitimate businessman his father had pretended to be. The transformation was nearly complete. Nneka moved through the crowd, 7 months pregnant now, radiant in a custom gown that accommodated her belly. She was the foundation's director, the public face of their work. People responded to her warmth, her authenticity, her absolute commitment to the cause. "She's remarkable," Park Ji-ho said, appearing at Jin Woo's elbow. The old man had become an advisor, helping navigate the transition. "Your father would be so proud. Of Nneka or me. Both. You took an impossible situation and made it right. Not easy, not clean, but right." Ji-ho sipped his champagne. "The old guard talks, you know. Some say you went soft, destroyed what your father built. And what do you say? I say your father built protection, and you're protecting people from what that became. That's not soft. That's brave." He clasped Jin Woo's shoulder. "Also, I like your wife. She's terrifying when she needs to be. Good trait in this family." Jin Woo laughed. "She's from Lagos. They don't raise soft women there. Good. You need someone who can match you." The speeches began. Nneka took the stage, no notes, speaking from the heart about the foundation's work, the women and children they'd helped, the trafficking networks they'd helped dismantle, the partnerships with governments across Asia. 2 years ago, she said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom, I was a nursing student worried about exams and rent. Today, I stand before you as the director of a foundation that's helped over 5,000 people reclaim their lives from slavery. That transformation didn't happen because of me alone. It happened because of a man who inherited darkness and chose to create light instead. She found Jin Woo in the crowd, held his gaze. "My husband jokes that I saved his life on Christmas. But the truth is, we saved each other. He gave me purpose, and I gave him hope. Together, we're building something that matters. And with your support tonight, your donations, your commitment to this cause, we'll save thousands more." The applause was thunderous. Donations flooded in, corporations trying to associate with legitimacy, old family friends supporting Jin Woo's vision, new allies drawn by Nneka's passion. By night's end, they'd raised enough to fund operations for another year. "Not bad," Jin Woo murmured as they finally escaped to a private terrace, Nneka slipping off her heels with a groan. "Not bad. We crushed it." She leaned against him, tired but triumphant. "Your father's foundation, our work, legitimate money funding legitimate help. This is what winning looks like. This is what you look like winning. I just write checks. You transformed an empire. I'd say that's more than writing checks." Her hand found his. "Our daughter's going to grow up hearing stories about this. About her father who chose right over easy. About her mother who wouldn't leave well enough alone." "Daughter. Oh, right. Forgot to mention, the ultrasound yesterday confirmed it. We're having a girl." Jin Woo pulled back to look at her. "And you waited until now to tell me? I wanted the perfect moment. This felt perfect." She smiled. "A daughter, Jin Woo. Born into legitimacy, safety, love. Everything we fought for." He kissed her then, soft and deep, pouring everything he couldn't say into the gesture. When they broke apart, both had tears in their eyes. "A daughter," he repeated, wonder in his voice. "What should we name her?" "I was thinking, Min-soo. For your father. But the Korean version for girls, Min-seo." "You want to name our daughter after my father?" "He started all this in his way. Built an empire to protect people. We're just finishing what he started, doing it right. Seems fitting to honor that." She paused. "Unless you hate it." "I love it. Min-seo Park Okafor." He tested the name, felt its rightness. She'll have to learn 3 languages. For if you count business speak. Nneka laughed. "She'll be fine. She's ours. She'll be unstoppable." Through the ballroom windows, the gala continued. People networking, donating, supporting the cause. All of it legitimate now, clean, something they could build a future on. "Do you ever miss it?" Nneka asked quietly. "The old life. The power that came from fear instead of respect." No. He didn't even have to think about it. That power was hollow. This, what we're building, this is real. Harder, slower, but real. Good answer. She yawned. Now take me home. Your daughter is exhausted from being impressive all night. Our daughter. Fine. Our daughter. But I'm doing all the work of growing her, so I get extra credit. They left through the back exit, avoiding the remaining guests, and drove home through Seoul's glittering night. The city that had witnessed their beginning now watched their triumph. Nneka Park Okafor entered the world at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, screaming her displeasure at being evicted from the warm darkness. Jin-woo, who'd faced down armed men and hostile takeovers without flinching, nearly passed out at the first sight of blood. Sit down before you fall down, Nneka ordered between contractions, still managing his crisis while handling her own. I'm fine. You're green. Sit. He sat. Miho, who'd insisted on standing guard outside the delivery room, stuck his head in long enough to laugh at his boss's weakness, then wisely retreated. 7 hours later, Jin-woo held his daughter, tiny, red-faced, perfect. She had Nneka's nose and his eyes and lungs that suggested a future in opera or protest organizing. She's so small, he breathed, terrified he'd break her just by breathing too close. She'll grow. Nneka, exhausted but glowing, watched him with their daughter. Probably into a terror, if genetics mean anything. She's perfect. She's 5 minutes old. Give her time to develop a personality. But watching Jin-woo cradle Nneka, seeing the fierce protectiveness that transformed his face, Nneka knew their daughter would be loved beyond measure. Would grow up safe, legitimate, free to choose her own path instead of inheriting someone else's darkness. The door burst open. Both grandmothers swept in, followed by Nneka's father and brothers, Jin-woo's mother, and somehow Miho with an enormous teddy bear. Everyone out, a nurse tried. She needs rest. 5 minutes, Nneka's mother said, already reaching for the baby. We came all the way from Lagos. You live in Seoul now, Nneka pointed out. Still counts. The room filled with family, with love, with chaos. Jin-woo stepped back, letting the grandmothers fight over holding Nneka. His mother won by virtue of being faster, and found Miho beside him. Congratulations, boss. She's beautiful. Thank you. For everything. For protecting us. For believing in the transition. For doing my job. Miho smiled. Your father asked me to protect you. I'm just keeping my promise. Though I suspect he nodded at Nneka, who was mediating the grandmother dispute with impressive diplomacy. She's your real protection now. Always has been. They watched the scene, 2 families from opposite sides of the world, united around one tiny baby. This was Jin-woo's empire now. Not territory or money or fear, but this family, love, legacy that had nothing to do with crime and everything to do with choice. His phone buzzed. A message from Lee Sang-mi in Busan. Congratulations on the baby. Also, the last asset conversion is complete. Park Industries is 100% legitimate as of this morning. We did it. Jin-woo showed Nneka the message. She read it, then looked up at him with tears in her eyes. We did it, she whispered. We did it. 2.5 years. From bullets on Christmas to a baby in spring. From a criminal empire to a legitimate one. From a stranger's door to a family that spanned continents. Nneka started crying. Hungry, probably, or just wanting her mother. Nneka took her from the grandmothers, settled her to feed, and the room quieted as they watched new life sustained. She'll never know, Jin-woo said softly. The old world, what it was like before. She'll just grow up with this. Good, Nneka replied. That's the point. We bled so she wouldn't have to. We fought so she could have peace. Think she'll appreciate it? Probably not until she's 30 and has her own kids. That's how it works. Nneka smiled down at their daughter. But we'll tell her the stories anyway. About the Christmas that changed everything. About how her parents met in blood and built something beautiful. About her grandfather who dreamed of protection and her father who made it real. Poetic. I have my moments. Outside the hospital window, Seoul was waking up. Tuesday morning, ordinary, unremarkable except for being the day Minesio Park Okafor was born. A Korean name and a Nigerian surname. A legacy of darkness transformed into light. A future where opening doors didn't mean inviting violence, but welcoming possibility. Jin-woo took Nneka's free hand, and together they watched their daughter, their impossible, perfect, hard-won daughter, begin her first day in a world they'd made safer for her. This was the ending, and the beginning. This was what they'd fought for. This was love. From a Christmas Day shooting to a spring birth. From a crime empire to a legitimate foundation. From a stranger at the door to a family that bridges continents. This is Crimson Snow, a story about choices, about courage, about two people from different worlds who found each other in the worst moment and built the best future. Nneka and Jin-woo's story reminds us that we're not defined by what we inherit, but by what we choose to become. That love isn't just romance, it's partnership, sacrifice, the decision to stay when leaving would be easier. Their daughter, Minesio, will grow up in the world they created. She'll never know the empire's dark past, only its transformed present. And perhaps that's the greatest victory, to give the next generation peace, bought with the blood and tears and choices of those who came before. May we all have the courage to open the door when someone knocks, even when it's dangerous. May we all find partners who help us become better than we were. And may we all build legacies worth inheriting. Thank you for reading their story. Finish what they started, together.